Oh, welcome to the big show. The Nets are headed back to Brooklyn, but Kyrie is in a walking boot. What does this mean for Game 5 and the rest of the series? Le'Veon Bell says he'd retire before playing again for Andy Reid. No news on if he's in the running for the Jeopardy job. Stay tuned. And finally, the Joker gets tossed. Game over. Season over. Suns sweep. And with that, I'm going to welcome you into the big show. Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, I'm Kevin Wiles. Jenna is on vacation, and so is the Joker. Nick, do you have any recommendations for him?
Yeah, I think you should do what Jenna's going to be doing. A lot of cardio. A lot of cardio this offseason, Joker. I think that'll help. I think it'll be good for him. Oh, boy. What a Monday morning, Wilds.
Oh. We're going to head to Milwaukee. Nets-Bucks Game 4, second quarter. Kyrie lands on Giannis. Out for the remainder of the game. X-rays were negative, but Kyrie reportedly left the arena in a walking boot and crutches. Meanwhile, Giannis finally had the great idea to stop shooting so many darn threes. Attacked the rim, had a game-high 34. Series tied 2-2.
No.
But all anyone could talk about was Kyrie's ankle. Here's Steve Nash after the game.
We'll cross our fingers and hope that it's better than I don't know, better than what? Better than missing the next game. It is tricky with Kevin. We all got to pitch in. We all got to play together. We got to move the ball. And I thought tonight we got a little single-minded, looking for Kevin every time. Puts a little bit too much pressure on him and makes us a little more predictable.
Yeah, you think? He's the superstar. Only one left. Nick, how big of a deal is this for the Nets?
Oh, it's obviously a huge deal. And now the impossible is being asked of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is in a position that he has not been in since 2016 when his team ended up blowing a 3-1 series lead. And that is, can you win a series where your team has the same number of MVP candidates as the other team? It's tough, man. It's KD versus Giannis. It's almost an even match. It's 2-2. How can you be expected to win 2 out of 4 games, which is all they had to do, by the way? They're up 2-1 when Kyrie gets hurt. How can you be expected? I don't know. It's unfair. It's not what Kevin Durant signed up for. Kevin Durant, in fact, I looked it up. There's only been a couple moments in his career he's had to play a playoff series without another MVP next to him. In 2015, he had to do it after Russ went down against the Rockets, and he summarily lost in 5 to the Grizzlies. In 2018, he had to play without Steph for a round against, who was that against? Was that against Portland? No, it was against San Antonio, but he had Clay, and they obviously won that. But that's it. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, it's asking a lot from Kevin Durant. Now, luckily, Brandon, he's the best player on the planet. Luckily, Brandon, the Nets still have the great Joe Harris, Blake Griffin, Mike James, who we were talking about last week, and the Bucks are, a flawed one-man team. So, yeah, I think that the Nets are in a tougher spot, but they got to win 2 of the next 3 with 2 of them at home. I assume you believe, I don't know where your Durant jersey is, that they can do it. You don't look
Where's
like
the Durant jersey? That's all that's left.
Yeah.
I mean, people asking me today, walking into the studio, how was your weekend? How was my weekend? Terrible. James Harden in his hamstring. You got Kyrie Irving in his ankle. And yes, all I'm left is with Durant. He is one of the greatest players on the planet right now. He's a walking bucket. But the reality, Nick, is it might be damn near impossible to get it done if Kyrie don't come back. If James Harden doesn't walk back in there with a hamstring that can hold up for 32, 34 minutes, then I don't know if they have a chance. They are the better team given the situation. The Bucks are the better team. Drew Holiday can ball. Chris Middleton is probably the most underrated player out there. Look what he did, the big shots he made last night. Like, come on, man. This is all bad. This was their... But this has been the situation all year. All year. They only played together 8 times. They're banged up. Injury after injury after injury. So this is just all bad for the Brooklyn Nets right now, and it's just tearing up my season, man.
Well, I do feel for you, Brandon, but not that much because this was kind of predictable. So you can look back to NBA finals. This obviously isn't the finals, but NBA postseasons where it's like, man, injuries determined it. Some would argue in 2015 when Love and Kyrie go down for those Cavs with LeBron.
Right.
And that was shocking because Love and Kyrie had both played 75 games that year. A lot of people, of course, go to 2019 when KD and Klay go down for the Warriors. And that was shocking because both of those guys had played 78 games this year. One of the reasons I have not been as high on the Nets as literally every other basketball watching American is this concern. James Harden dealing with a hamstring injury these playoffs is not surprising. It would have been surprising if he didn't. He missed 20 games this year with the hamstring injury. And Kyrie Irving, unfortunately, getting banged up in a postseason is not surprising. In 2015, he was injured for the end of the postseason. In 2018, he was injured for the postseason. In 2020, he was injured for the postseason. So these aren't shocking events. The one guy that you would have been shocked if something would have happened to him would have been Durant because he's dealt with the one major injury other than his foot over the last decade. But Brandon, I am surprised
injuries happen.
That you're so inconsolable, that you're so down on the Nets' chances. They're at home with the best
100%.
player. KD's far better than Giannis, right?
You can't control that. So everything you just talked about, injuries, you can't control that. Kyrie in the paint, going up for a rebound, comes down, twists an ankle. That has nothing to do with him and his approach to taking care of his body. That is something that you can't control. Hell, last year in the bubble, we saw Giannis dealing with a knee. So every guy, every female athlete deals with injuries. It's just inevitable, but it's just all about timing. Here's the thing that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about P.J. Tucker. P.J. Tucker, low key, has really put he put his whole
stamp on the series.
He imposed his will, excuse me. There you go. He put a stamp on this series, and you said it. You said P.J. Tucker can stop KD, and KD came out and lit him up game 1 and even in game 2. And then all of a sudden, man, this dude is playing lights out game 3, game 4. Now, I do have Kevin Durant penciled in for a big game. Without Kyrie Irving, without James Harden, I don't think they get it done. I think Kevin Durant can have a big game or two, keep them in contention, but it's going to be hard. P.J. Tucker has been phenomenal. I thought that little corner 3 was going to be the reason why he, at the end of the series, like, yo, P.J. Tucker, he was worth the trade. He was worth it. But no, his defense has stood up. Him last night on KD was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was great. I don't know if there was any calls to bring security back in to try to get him away from KD, but he played phenomenal. Brandon, I want to show you 2 things. The first one, which made me think like the blowout from game 2 was far away. This was after Kyrie's left. The Bucks are just playing with so much confidence here. Once the ball starts being thrown between Kevin Durant's legs, that means that the Bucks are no longer afraid of the Nets. And Nick, we talked about it last week. The threes are starting to fall. They made 16 out of 47, 34%. Here's the dangerous thing. Still not even as good as they are in the regular season. Do you see them raining down threes in game 5 and taking it?
Oh, I don't know if they'll make 16 again, but they're not going to make 6. And I want to talk for a moment, though, about game 4, because people are going to misremember how this happened. This game flipped before Kyrie got hurt. The Bucks were on a 19-2 run when Kyrie got hurt. The Bucks, after being down double digits, had not taken control, but they had gotten themselves back in the game and taken the lead. At halftime, it's a 5-point game. And in that second half, Kevin Durant had an opportunity. I just got to be great for a half, and then we're up 3-1, and then I don't think Brandon is as anxious this morning. Even if Kyrie and Harden are done for the year, can the Nets steal one of the next 3? And Kevin Durant, after Kyrie went out, was 6 for 19. And the majority of that work actually happened in the 5 minutes P.J. Tucker went to the bench in the third quarter. P.J. Tucker went to the bench in the third quarter with foul trouble. KD exploded for 14 points in 5.5 minutes, 4 of 6 shooting. Aside from that, when Tucker was on the floor, he was 3 of 11 when he was guarded by P.J. Tucker. So I do think that the Nets had an opportunity last night, is particularly after they gathered themselves at halftime, if KD had gone off. He didn't. And I'm not trying to be too hard on KD. I do think he's the second best player in the world. But if we're going to hold him to those standards, it is surprising to me, so many Nets fans, and I'm not picking on Brandon, that to have you got to win 2 out of 4. Like, you got to split with the they're not playing an all-time great team. They're playing a team with one star.
I think the standard.
They have 1 star.
Yeah. Yeah, but Nick, come on, man. The standard that you're trying to hold KD to is ridiculous. I mean, think about it. The Chiefs, if Patrick Mahomes goes down and also Tyreek Hill goes down, you have no chance. So you got James Harden, who goes down, is only 40 seconds. You got James Harden, who goes down. He only played 40 seconds in this series. And then those two together, still no excuse. Hold them to the standard. The standard is you guys got to go win it. So you have Kyrie Irving and KD left on your team. You have a good chance of winning it. But now Kyrie goes down. Yeah, that's too much for KD to ask. No, we're not saying that they're bums. We're just saying that the Bucks aren't better than the Nets when both teams are fully loaded. And the Bucks are still fully loaded. The Bucks are the one team this year that hasn't dealt with those type of injuries. The Philadelphia 76ers, they dealt with injuries. Embiid in and out. You have the Lakers dealing with injuries in and out. So you have the Nets dealing with it all year. So that's the thing here is the standards that we're talking about for KD moving forward. I just don't think they're sustainable and it's just out of this world.
I think it would be unfair to say Nets still should win the title. That KD, if Harden and Kyrie don't come back, they should still. I think that would be wildly unfair. We're not talking about winning the title. We're not even talking about winning a series. We're talking about up 2-1, you lose Kyrie Irving midway through the second quarter. Can you win 2 of 4? Now they have to win 2 of 3 against a team that 5 days ago, everyone was declaring dead in the water, super flawed. I don't know if that is an unfair standard, Wilds, but we'll get to find out some of that on Tuesday night.
Joker, tossed from the game. Did he deserve it? Spoiler alert. Yes. More after the break. Time for drawing a blank. Le'Veon Bell played 9 seasons with the Chiefs. Didn't love it. Took to the gram this weekend to share his thoughts. Said, quote, "I'll never play for Andy Reid again. I'd retire first." Whoa, seems unnecessary, a little too much. So he took some heat for that. He said, "Look, I said what I said. I don't regret at all what I said. For those who have a personal problem with me because of what I said, that's fine. You have your right. Just understand I also have my right for how I feel about my personal problem with dude because of what he said to me." Okay, sure. Here's a little and simpler. Honey Badger comes in, says these fellas will blame everybody for their lack of success. That's how I know I'm built different. Nice. Throws in, gets a dig at Le'Veon Bell and a compliment to himself. Brandon, Le'Veon Bell's IG was what?
Another bad decision. And this is hard for me, right? Because a lot of times when we're talking about other people and their judgment, their lack of, being able to understand their self-awareness, we forget that we've also made bad decisions. But this is another bad decision by Le'Veon Bell. We got to talk about it. You go back to when he was in Pittsburgh. He was the best back in football. And then he wants to go on IG and, start rapping, get caught with this and that. And then he makes his decision to leave there. Like they had the Killer Bees? I mean, they were unstoppable. They could have won 2 Super Bowls together. And then he holds out. He doesn't play an entire year. And in retrospect, that was a bad decision. And then he chose the Jets over other teams he could have went to. Took less money, went to the Big Apple. Bad decision. Adam Gase. Did you not look at Adam Gase when he was in Denver and Miami? His backs never were super successful. And then he had an opportunity to leave and revitalize his career. and you had the Buffalo Bills sitting right there and Josh Allen, and you have Stephon Diggs. Like, you could have went in there and dominated. They wanted you. When someone wants you really bad, you go there first. And he decided to go to the Kansas City Chiefs first. Now, he went for the Super Bowl, which I respect him for that. But you got to get your career back on track. So you got to decide, do I go to the Super Bowl right now, or do I go get my career back on track so I'm not sitting in this situation in the offseason where no team wants me? I'm still unsigned. So it was another bad decision.
I think you make a lot of good points, Brandon. And before I give my answer, let me give a shout out to the IG user Scumnazy, who got this whole back and forth started. Thank you, sir. You gave us good content. Nothing like 2021 media. It's like, hey, Scumnazy, what'd you say on Twitter? Now we've got a segment. I'm going to the Wise Book of Schlereth. Our friend Mark Schlereth Wilds has a very wise parable that I think applies to the Le'Veon Bell situation. And I'm going to have to censor it, but it is, if everywhere you go, it smells like bleep, maybe it's you. Lev Bell, I've supported you, but if you can't get along with Tomlin or Andy Reid, Gase I'll give you a pass for, maybe it's a little bit of you. So I think Lev Bell, as he tries to now revitalize his career for a final time, is going to have to figure out how much has it been situation and how much has it been him.
I believe that's also called if you smelt it, you dealt it. But anyways. Hey, celebrity boxing is all the rage. So the Joker tries to get involved. Problem is, it's a basketball game. He got tossed for it. Game over, season over. Take a listen to what he had to say after the game.
I wanted to change the rhythm of the game. I wanted to give us some energy, maybe to change the whistle a little bit. So I tried to make a hard foul. Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Did I didn't hit him? We don't know. So I say sorry if I did, because I didn't do it. I didn't want to injure him or hit him in the head on purpose. So I watched the game in the locker room to cool off a little bit.
Brandon, Joker's ejection and the elimination loss was what?
Pulling the card too soon. What card, Brandon? The MVP card. Look, the ink hasn't even dried on the MVP trophy with his name on it. He should have waited another series or another game. This was way too soon. Now, here's the reality. No other MVP would have been thrown out the game. LeBron would have never got thrown out the game for this. Russ would have never got thrown out the game. Giannis, Harden, you go on and on. So this is the NBA totally disrespecting the MVP. Have they not realized that he is the MVP, Nick?
Wow. Well, I don't know. I sure haven't realized it. Wilds, I'm going to surprise you here. This is actually good for Joker. Multiple reasons. First reason it's good for Joker. He didn't have to suffer the embarrassment of watching the actual MVP light his team on fire for the quarter and a half remaining in that game, which Chris Paul did and was going to do either way. The other reason it's good for Joker is this. We now will have a reason to remember this MVP season. Otherwise, it's going to be lost to history. It's like, wait, what happened that year? A lot of people got hurt. Who won it? It's like, oh, I know who won it. The best player on a team that got swept in round 2 and got kicked out of his final game. That's who won it. No one is going to forget it. So it's good for Joker. Now, instead of a forgettable Dave Cowens, like, what year did Cowens win the MVP? Was it 76? I'm not sure. We're like, nope, it was 2021. His team got swept. He got the boot. So good job, Joker. We'll now remember it. I'm not
Brandon, can I push back on you a little bit here? Here's the thing about flagrant 1 is unnecessary. Flagrant 2 is unnecessary and excessive, which this meets the definition of. And here's the thing about MVP, because I know it's a big argument, like, you can't throw out the MVP. You can't do it to the MVP. An MVP award is like your birthday. You get extra stuff. So you go to the foul and you go to the drive to the hoop and it's questionable. You get the foul. You get extra stuff. You don't get to harm people. That doesn't come with the trophy.
Yeah,
you
but he didn't try to. If Booker never got in his face and if he went to Payne and said, I'm sorry, like he did after he got ejected, then they would have never given him a flagrant 2. Come on.
I'll buy that. Cameron Payne did a good job here.
Nice
LeBron laying down. Oh, my gosh.
Right, yeah.
LeBron Where'd that come from?
Who said that? Who said that, Jenna? Hey, turn it on to Weird and Wonderful. Mets Padres. This is the old Home Alone move. When you go over there, just throw some marbles on the ground. Next thing you know, Joe Pesci loses it. Didn't work, though. Made the catch. Ball boy's like, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have done that. That was an accident anyways. He didn't really do it.
Poor guy.
Moving on to the Wonderful. We've seen a few baseball brawls. These guys used to be teammates. The umpire forgot about it. I said, oh, shoot, I thought you guys were going to fight. He's like, no, man, we're just joking around. So good job by the ump. And great job by Phillips.
Charged him out.
No, it's a great job. Also, KD security was going to run in there, break him up since he couldn't go to the Milwaukee game. He went to this game. And finally, fans full capacity at Wrigley make a huge beer snake. Can I just tell you something? I know this looks good. I'm not doing this. If I'm there, I'm actually going to be upset. Call me a party pooper. I don't want this anywhere near me. I just want to watch the game. I don't want to be holding something like I'm in the Navy SEAL training. Not doing it. So that's the Weird and Wonderful from the national pastime. No one gets to comment.
You're also not doing it, Wilds, because you wouldn't be caught dead in the 500 section of Wrigley. Come on. Come on. You're baseline or nothing. Be honest. Be honest.
Fair play. I'm old baseline at Wrigley. Hey, did CP3 prove he's the real MVP? Taking the trophy away from Kevin Durant's mom. Coming up after the break.
Wilds in the bleachers.
The Suns and Chris Paul are in the Western Conference Finals. CP3 and Devin Booker go for 71 points combined. Let's take a listen to Chris after the game.
I knew what we'd be capable of because I know Book and I know how he competes and the energy that he plays with. It's just dope to see everything that's come together since, the trade happened. The day after I got traded, we was in the gym working together. And I think that says a lot about why we are where we are right now.
I think the whole team needs to walk out the arena with a head up. It is what it is, So sometimes you need to accept the loss. Sometimes someone can beat you, but accept it and try to be better. Don't try to think about that much. You cannot change it.
Nick, who does the Suns sweep of Denver say the most about?
Chris Paul. And I think that maybe folks will hopefully during this playoff run start to appreciate two guys more. One current, one former. And that is Chris Paul and Isaiah Thomas, the original Isaiah Thomas, because he is just the modern version of that player who, up until Steph walked into the league, was the greatest little guy in league history. And the reason they are one and the same is not just because they're ultimate leaders, not just because they contribute so much to winning, but because they always have this available to them. And by this, I mean the 35-point explosion. They just don't go to it often because it typically is not the best way for their team to win. If you ever go through Isaiah Thomas's basketball reference page, his playoff game log, what you'll see is a lot of 19 points, 11 assists, 21 points, 12 assists, and then boom, 37 points. Like, wow, what happened there? It's like, oh, it was an elimination game. He knew his team had to have it, so he went to it. And Chris Paul went to that place last night for his most points he's scored in 3 years. When he's always able to go to that place, it's just not the best way for his team to win. So I know folks expect me right now to talk about Nikola Jokic, the league MVP who just got swept and got kicked out of the game. I might do that more later. Right now I want to focus on Chris. Brandon, Chris Paul's numbers this series don't sound real. 26, 5, and 10 averages. Only 5 total turnovers, with shooting percentages of 62% from the field, 73% for 75% from three and 100% from the line. That's for a series against a team with the league MVP.
Woof.
So that is perfect point guard play. More steals than turnovers. So to me, the series is most about the guy who should have been league MVP this year, Chris Paul.
100%. Look, there is a strong argument for Joker, right? Like, you're the MVP. Like, how can you be the MVP and get swept? But you're right, Nick. This is all about Chris Paul. What he's done for this organization and every organization he's joined is remarkable. Think about what he's done over his year and the narrative around him. He goes from point guard coming into the league and just dominating to all of a sudden he's the guy that can't win a big one. He's the guy that gets to the playoffs and end up hurting himself. Hell, he almost played into that narrative this year with the shoulder. And then now he is considered the guy to revitalize your organization. You got the Knicks out there. There's rumors that the Knicks, this guy at his age, the Knicks want to offer him a 3-year deal, a big deal. Think about that. So you have to go with CP3. His relationship with Monty Williams started back when he first got in the league. So to see them come together and get this done, you know, in such a quick turnaround says a lot about those two guys. And I really believe what Chris Paul said after the day after he got traded, they were in the gym, him and Booker. I truly believe that set the tone, Wilds.
That's right. That's a good take. And you're trying to bait me into the New York stuff. I'm not going to take it, even though CP3 is a longtime CAA client and Leon Rose, former CAA guy, now runs the Knicks. I am not going to take it. But it would be nice. It would be nice. Okay. So Nick, I'm going to go 10,000 feet and go off the board with my answer and see what you think. Because for a long time, we wanted CP3 to win a title, and now as he gets closer, I think there's an emotional investment from all NBA fans who are pulling for him. No matter who you like in the league, whoever your favorite team is, you're pulling emotionally for Chris Paul. There's another guy, point guard, who is now, however far Chris Paul goes, there's another guy we feel like that about, Dame Lillard. And once Denver got swept, I think Dame Lillard sits back there and be like, you got to be kidding me. We're further away than we thought. We just lost to the team that got swept in the next round. So for me, the biggest loser in the sweep besides Joker was Dame, because I think Dame thought he was this far away when actually he's that far away. I don't know if that makes a move from Dame, but that was the one that came to mind.
I think the Dame stuff is going to be on a simmer all year. I can't see him doing an about face on Portland and loyalty, and I want to build it here in just this short period of time. I think the Dame story is going to be the dominant story of next offseason, because I could see him doing it a year from now if things once again stay where I think they're going to stay in Portland. But on the Suns, about 2 months ago, Brandon, I know Broussard's going to be on the show, when we were talking about the Lakers who were looking wounded and injured, and that ended up being how they finished the season, Brandon, while he had stuck with the Clippers all year, said, guys, the Suns could come out of the West. And not only does it look like they could come out of the West, right now I think it looks like they will come out of the West. And I think it is doing a disservice to the other guys on the team if we only talk about Chris Paul in this regard. For this series, Brandon, as a team, the Suns shot 50, 40, 90. They have now won 7 consecutive playoff games against LeBron James and then Nikola Jokic. And in all 7, they've had a lead greater than 15 points at one point in time. These haven't been close games. They have been winning these games, but running away and hiding. And so it speaks to what Ayton's doing. It speaks to what Booker's doing. It speaks to what Monty Williams has done all year. And, of course, it speaks to the man who should have been MVP this season, Chris Paul.
Yeah, most balanced team, the most complete team, and they're taking advantage of the situation. Like, if the Lakers was fully loaded and AD did what he had to do and he wasn't banged up in LeBron James, then it wouldn't be a conversation. And the same thing with the Clippers. I don't know what's going on with the Clippers, but they have everything they need to get the job done. The Suns coming in this short period of time, bringing together this locker room and getting the job done says a lot about this team. They're taking advantage of this situation. Now, when you look at it, I mean, I know if the Sixers have it, if the Nets go down. You know, this could be a clear path for the Suns. I do like the Bucks. I do think that would be an interesting finals, the Bucks versus the Suns. But we'll see what happens because there's so much more ball left to be played, Wilds.
Medals time. Joel Embiid, 27, 9, and 8 in the Sixers' Game 3 win on Friday. Didn't make the podium. Who did? Here's Nick Wright with the answer.
Only winners on this weekend's podium. Nikola Jokic had an amazing game, but when you have an amazing game to go down 3-0 and then get kicked out of Game 4, you are not on the podium. I'll tell you who is. Giannis Antetokounmpo, just a nice, quiet 34-12 to even up the series with the unbeatable, oh God, I can't wait for It's Over, Chris Broussard to join us, Brooklyn Nets. Giannis gets a bronze. Silver medalist, Kawhi Leonard. Everybody is focused, understandably, on what Paul George did in Game 3, but Kawhi was the best guy on the court in Game 3. 34-12-5 as the Clippers season stays alive with the big victory at home, blowout victory over the Jazz. And then the gold medalist, we just talked about him, 37-7, 75% from the field, joins Karl Malone and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the only players in league history to score at least 37 points in a playoff game, age 36 or older. Chris Paul gets the gold medal. He would have gotten gold and silver if he'd have dunked that one. Gotta think maybe he can't dunk anymore, but that's all right. Chris Paul gets the gold medal, Wilds.
He can definitely dunk. All right, missing the cut. Usually it's the superstars handing the fans maybe a pair of sneakers or a wristband or something. This fan goes the other way. Say, hey, Giannis, great game. Here's my phone. You can take it. It's got a big data plan. Giannis gives it to his friend. Now he got a free phone out of it. So great job, Giannis. After the break, talking Kawhi and the Clippers. Are they back on track to win a title after winning Game 3 on Saturday? Oh, you know who's here. Mr. Clipper himself, Chris Broussard. Next on First Things First. Clippers series back in LA on Saturday. Kawhi and Paul George played like their backs were against the wall, and that's when they're good. Not when they're winning, when their backs are against the wall. Kawhi finished with 34, PG at 31. Instead of PG-13, PG-31. There you go. These Clippers get the win, get back in the series. Here's Paul George after the game.
They lit a fire under us. We had to come out and play, protect our home court. The way Dallas came here and had their way with us, we knew we had to come here and protect this home court.
What was different for you personally?
Myself, just shoot. You know, just shoot. Don't worry about the results. Just shoot. Shoot some more and shoot again. So, you know, I just came out to be aggressive, find my shot, and just stay with it.
You're right back in this series. What's going to be the key to tying this thing up on Monday?
Let this one go. Get ready for Game 4. Same attack mentality. Play as a team.
Joining us here now, Mr. Clipper himself, Chris Broussard. Broussard, can your Clippers continue to rely on Paul George? Make this a series.
Well, speaking of Paul George, is it just me or does it feel like every post-game interview is a referendum on his mental state? Is he feeling confident? Right. Is he being hesitant? Where is he at? You know, so it's just strange that way. But look, the Paul George to give you 31 points, 6 of 10 shooting from 3. And are we getting that Paul George the rest of the series? No. But we can get a Paul George who, and we will, I believe, get a Paul George who can play well enough for the Clippers to win this series. Paul George is going to give you 20-plus points every night. He's done it every single game in this postseason. That's 10 games. Now, it might be inefficient. It might not be the best game, but he's going to get his 20-plus points. And if Kawhi is truly unlocked, as he was in Game 3, and if that's the Kawhi we're going to see for the rest of the series, and just one role player per game steps up and breaks out. It was Nick Batum with 17 points in Game 3. Reggie Jackson has dropped a 20-piece here and there. 29, I think, in Game 2. Marcus Morris with the 7 threes, was it? In Game 7, 6 or 7 threes in Game 7 against Dallas. If they can just get one role player to step out of himself and play an exceptional game, plus Kawhi at the top of his game, Paul George's 20-plus will be fine. of the 4 games remaining, I'm saying it's going 7. I think George will have one more excellent game as he did in game 3, and he was very good in game 2 as well. I think he'll have 2 very good games, or 2 good to very good games, and 1 more mediocre game. So, bottom line is he can play well enough as the second guy to Kawhi for them to win this series.
How about that?
Chris, we talked about this Friday, and what I asked for was an easy 30, and he gave us that 30. I don't think they win and they advance if you don't get Paul George playing this way. I hear you on that, but just an okay or an average or a good Paul George doesn't get the job done against the number 1 seed, the Utah Jazz. Now, people continue to disrespect this team, but they're good, right? And we're talking about Donovan Mitchell all last week. Like, it's time to put him in the same conversation as LeBron and Steph Curry and KD, et cetera, et cetera. So if that's the case, then you need Paul George to play the way he played. And I just don't see that happening. And one of the reasons why you keep hearing him talk about his mindset, and that goes back to the bubble where he reveals, like, look, I start talking to a therapist. I'm dealing with some depression. And a lot of that has to do with confidence as a player. As a player, and anybody for that matter, when you lose your confidence, you are done. You are cooked. So think about what he was just saying in his press conference after, after when he was interviewed after the game. He was like, I just kept telling myself to shoot. If you're a player, any sport, and you're out there thinking about the results, if you're thinking about, wow, is Brandon Marshall going to say playoff P? Is Stephen A. Smith going to say this? Chris Bouchard? Like, you're done. So for him to go out there and say, I don't care about what they're saying, and I'm just going to shoot, I don't care about the results, it says a lot to where he's at. Now, can he maintain that is the question. If he can maintain that mentality, then they may be able to come out this series.
Yeah, listen, I'll give Paul George credit. We said on Friday, as Brandon alluded to, there had been 58 30-point games these playoffs by 21 different guys. Paul George was not part of that group, and now he is. And this is, to me, Wildes, a typical Clippers playoff win in this regard. And I know this is going to sound redundant, but when the Clippers look great, they look great. And that's what it was on Friday night. It was like, oh my God, look at them. Or for Saturday night, whichever night it was. I get my weekends run together, too much tequila. Whatever night it was, it's like, wow, how does this team get beat? Look at Reggie Jackson is a flamethrower from 3. They have all these options. They didn't even have to use playoff Rondo, who, by the way, has been playoff Rondo this series and this playoffs, and he's got 2 DNP coaches' decisions the last couple of games. But there is, when things, I know this is going to sound odd, and people are like, Nick, you're hating on the Clippers, but I mean it. I think I would have a little more confidence in them if this was a tie game with 5 minutes left and they won it, rather than running away from the Jazz. Because there are still some of the same concerns I have about their execution late in games. We didn't get to see it this game because they were so far ahead. And at some point, the Clippers do have to address this. Broussard mentioned 10 games of these playoffs. 10 games of these playoffs, and 9 of those 10, the other team's best player has just lit them on fire. Like Luka did it 6 times. Donovan had a quiet 30 in a game that he didn't play most of the fourth quarter, pardon me. Like, Wildes, that is a concern. That they don't, except for the one Kawhi game where he matched up on Luka, I think it was game 6, they haven't really shown the ability to stop the opposing team's best guy. And the Jazz have so many good shooting options that you're going to have to score a bunch. And if Reggie Jackson doesn't continue to shoot 63% from 3, which is what he's shooting this series, I think the Clippers remain in trouble, even if Paul George does give you a couple more 30-point games.
See, Broussard, what do you think about Kawhi sort of modulating his effort? Because he was on Donovan for a little while, and he shut Donovan down. He got a steal, got a dunk, and you could see Donovan frustrated. Now, Donovan had like this, tweaking his ankle a little bit, so he was sort of, I don't think he was full strength either. Felt like at one point in the game, everybody just started to look forward to game 4. But do you think that if when the going gets tough, that Kawhi could go longer on Donovan to really try to shut him down?
I think you'll have to. And look, Nick alluded to it last week. I think I alluded to it maybe a month or so ago. Kawhi appears to be an old 29. I mean, he just can't give it to you on both ends of the court for 40 minutes a night every playoff game. And I remember last year when he was doing the load management his first season with the Clippers, people were telling me, look, in the league, he's got to do this. It's something with the knee. I mean, like, it's not just a mental thing they were saying where he just doesn't want to play or whatever. He feels like he has to do it, and he does have to do it. Now, this year, credit to him, he played a lot of back-to-backs. He's obviously going every night in the playoffs, but I think the Clippers almost are like, look, we're going to try to win it without exhausting him on the defensive end, but when push comes to shove, if we absolutely have to put him there on the best guy defensively, then we're going to have to do it. And I almost think there's a deal, and he knows it too. We'll try to win without me having to guard Donovan, but if I got to, then I will.
And listen, I was talking to an NFL scout about a player training down here in South Florida, and we're talking about him aging. And I was like, look, sometimes when you see like a Julio Jones, 32, we keep looking at the trends and we look at the data and say, okay, this player is done, because, the last 20, 30 years, when you hit this age, you see a dip in production. Well, a lot of times you need to do a little bit more research, and you need to do a deeper dive as a scout to see how does this guy take care of himself. So this whole load management thing, that's why I never was a fan of the discussion, you're a bad player or you're not, one of the greats if you are actually load managing, because everybody's body's built differently. Kawhi, I've seen so many guys, throughout the week just trying to make it to Sunday or trying to make it to, a big game, whether it's on TNT or ESPN, whatever. So you have to figure out who you're dealing with, and you have to approach them accordingly. So you got Kawhi Leonard, and everything you're saying is correct. Like, this dude right now, he has to stand up every single game and give you everything on both ends. If not, then you're not going to see them advance to the second round. You're not going to see them have the year that they had this year. That's why it puts more pressure on Paul George. Paul George, stop thinking about the results. Stop thinking about what people are going to say come, post-game about your performance. Just go out there, put it all on the line, and keep shooting. And whatever happens, happens.
It's also why I wonder if it wouldn't be good for the Clippers and for Paul George to say to Paul George, you know what, game 4, we're not worried about your offense. You are the one that's going to take Donovan out of the game.
Good.
Get Paul's not thinking about his offense then. Like, take the offense that comes to you. If you get open threes, great. Get in transition, great. But we are going to try to. We're going to. Well, that's the thing is, then you need that, Broussard, who I think voted them the NBA's best all-around supporting cast and roster 2 years in a row. You need those guys. You need Luke Kennard, $64 million man, to make shots. You need Marcus Morris to make shots. You need Reggie to make shots, because I agree with Broussard's point, which is Kawhi obviously can. He showed it against Luka. Guard the other team's best guy and make a massive impact. He hasn't lost that ability. He just doesn't seem to have the ability to do it night in, night out, because his body won't let him. So maybe you tell Paul George, Wilds, you do it, and maybe that takes some of the pressure off Paul George on offense, and see if the Clippers can score enough.
Kyrie left the stadium on crutches in a walking boot. What does this mean for the Nets in Game 5 on Tuesday? Broussard is still here. Will he say it's over, ladies and gentlemen? Find out next.
How many times is this going to be over?
Here's something awesome. Saturday, Spring League Mega Bowl is on Fox. Catch the game's rising stars as they battle for the championship crown. Action begins Saturday on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Time for stories to start your morning. Sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Nets, Bucks, Game 4. Midway through the second quarter, Kyrie landing awkwardly on that right ankle, came down on Giannis' foot. Was not a cheap shot. Kyrie left the game with an ankle sprain, never returned. X-rays negative, but reportedly left the arena in a walking boot. Meanwhile, on the floor, Giannis stopped shooting threes, finished with a game-high 34 as the Bucks win, even the series at 2. But Steve Nash talking about Kyrie's health after the game. Take a listen.
We'll cross our fingers and hope that it's better than I don't know, better than what? Better than missing the next game. It is tricky with Kevin. We all got to pitch in. We all got to play together. We got to move the ball. And I thought tonight we got a little single-minded, looking for Kevin every time. Puts a little bit too much pressure on him. It makes us a little more predictable.
Nick, will this series be determined by Kyrie's ankle?
Well, I don't think so. I thought the Bucks were going to beat the Nets at full strength. And it should be noted, the Bucks went on a 19-2 run before Kyrie got hurt. I also think this puts Kevin Durant in an incredibly unfamiliar and almost unfair position. A position that Durant has almost never been in his entire career in the postseason, where he is playing a series where now his team has the same number of MVPs as the other team. And that, for Durant, is not something he's very familiar with. Now, I, for one, believe that doesn't mean the series is over. I think Durant's better than Giannis. And while Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday are the second and third best players on the Bucks, they are better than the second and third best players left on the Nets. It's 2 out of 3. The Nets have home court advantage. They have the best player in the series. So if Kyrie and Harden are done for the rest of the postseason or for a month each, can the Nets win the title? Of course not. That would be asking way too much of Kevin Durant. Is it asking too much of Durant to not let PJ Tucker kind of dominate that matchup, to go out and score 40-some points in a home Game 5 and put the pressure firmly on Milwaukee with back-to-back must-win games for a team that, as a collective or individually, coached players up and down the roster, have never won anything in the playoffs? No, that's not asking too much. So I think that the Nets are obviously in a worse position than they were before the series started, in a worse position they were before yesterday. But they still have the best guy in the series against a team that all of Basketball America, Brandon, was saying how flawed they were and how flawed Giannis was all last week. So, no, I don't think the series, if you pick the Nets before the series, I don't think you should feel like it's over. They're tied. They have home court. They have the best player. I'm interested how that is landing for folks, and you're not one of these people, Brandon, who have declared Kevin Durant the best player alive. His best player alive should be able to beat Giannis 2 out of 3. I don't look at the Bucks as a super team, and I think that's reasonable, but it seems like people are already anticipating a Nets series loss.
Yeah, and because those people are dealing with reality, right? Like, yes, yeah, of course. I'm still going to ride with the Nets and Durant. He's the last guy standing, but at the end of the day, it's going to be hard. There's some teams built around their scheme. There's some teams built around their players. The reason why people, there was a lot of people that said that the Nets wouldn't be in this position because it wouldn't work. Chemistry, how, all 3 guys, want to dominate the ball. Who's going to sacrifice? And then they made it happen. You saw that in the first series. You saw that this series, the first 2 games. But what happens is this team is built around their players. You got 3 guys that can score at will, average 25 points a pop when they're all on the court together. But then 2 of the 3 goes down, they have no chance, Nick. So anybody out there, that picked the Nets shouldn't feel bad about, their team and what position they're in right now, because you got James Harden, who only played 40 seconds in this series. Hamstring, and now Kyrie goes down. And yeah, they did go on a 19-2 run, but it was a 4-point game. And before Kyrie went down, they only had 6 turnovers, and after it was 11, the offense was flipped upside down. And in the middle of that game, it was asking too much of KD to come out there and will this team to victory when nobody else was stepping up. So now they have time to reload and figure out what the game plan is with maybe a James Harden, maybe a Kyrie. We don't know. Still, we don't know what's happening there. But without them, they're going to have to figure it out. And Kevin Durant is good enough, Wilds, to go drop 40, 45, which I have him scheduled to do. He'll come out and do that. But to win a couple of games against a team that just is better right now, given the situation, Giannis isn't a slouch. Giannis just can't shoot threes, and Giannis doesn't seem to want to put his back against the rim and get it done in the paint. So you gotta respect the Bucks for who they are. They're not a team, that is fully, when they're fully loaded and then the Nets are fully loaded or the 76ers are fully loaded, that can get it done. They're just not there. Giannis needs to ascend to another level and they need more help.
Optimistically, Brandon, Kevin Durant has a chance here to have a legacy-defining game. And Nick, this is your most a game from a championship tiers that we've probably debuted before the playoffs started, I think. You had Durant down at number 9, and I know this is about winning a championship. But I'm going to fast forward this and say that Tuesday night, Kevin Durant, who has been in our basketball lives for over a decade, and people have kind of like written his story. And he can add to it, but the story's written. Very rarely do you get a chance to redefine your legacy a little bit. And he's got to win this series, but it's got to start with Tuesday night. What do you think's on the line for KD's legacy in this series now that Harden and Kyrie are both not available?
Well, I think his legacy is cemented as far as from a positive standpoint. I don't think he can go backwards no matter what happens. But obviously, he has a lot to gain that's in a unique position because this is what we talked about with Steph. We know how great Steph is, but this year was fun and exciting because we got to see Steph the one-man show. So we got to see that for LeBron the first 7 years of his career in Cleveland and then his final year in Cleveland in 2018. We saw it once from Harden before they got Chris Paul the year Dwight was in and out of the lineup, where we see these great players have to go it alone. KD, after his rookie year, had Russ. And then he went from Russ to Steph and Clay. And then he went from there to Kyrie and Harden. So now we are going to get, it's supposed to be hard. One of the things everyone says about KD is he makes it look easy. Part of that is because he is so preternaturally brilliant. But the other reason is because it actually is easy when you have other superstars around you. Now you don't. And so he hasn't been in this position. There was one series against Memphis when Russ got hurt. There was the series against the Spurs when Steph got hurt, but he still had Clay. Now you get to see it against a team that isn't great. And by the way, it's a good team, but not a great team. Brandon, we saw Luka. We saw Luka on a supporting cast similar to what the Nets have left say, listen, I can win 3. Why?
Unfair expectations, Why? Nick. Why? I mean, you brought up LeBron James the first 7 years in Cleveland. LeBron didn't win anything. LeBron, he dominated, he played well, but he had to go down there and join D Wade. But he had to go down there and join D Wade and bring Chris Bosh with him to get it done.
Yeah, to win a title.
I mean,
not to win 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee with home court.
I mean, man,
we'll see.
That's tough.
We'll see.
It's tough.
I'm going to be there, Brandon. I got your seat. You should still come tomorrow night.